Bah! Okay, that was bad. I'm gonna turn the lights on.
My fault for the jump scare. My fault. That was probably I know I scared like the socks off of everybody. Because I planned that. I planned that jump scare for like took me like 3 shots. Took me like 3 runs to get it right. And I filmed that yesterday too. I mean, it's literally a different day now. Like I have literally different clothes.
This is gonna be a long video. I can't lie. So grab yourself a blanket or something. It's October, spooky time. So get, some candy or something. I don't know, popcorn. We're gonna be here for a while. So everybody knows horror movies and stuff, but does everyone really know folk horror? It's like a very like niche subgenre of horror that's not really everybody's thing. I can't really go around and just recommend these movies to everybody. You either like it or you don't. There's not really in between. Um, One thing is for certain is that it's some weird stuff. Like it's a very strange genre of film. And some of the most popular ones that have kind of come up in recent years was like Midsummer or The Witch.
Wilson! Wilson! Where's that little man? Peep-boo! There you are. There you are. Peep-boo!
And both of them have been pretty recent. And I've always been wondering like where did it start? Because these movies didn't just like show up out of nowhere. They must have had some influence from other films because they're always influenced from something. It's very hard to make something that's never been done before. So I went back, and it really started with these three films, also kind of known as like the unholy trinity of like folk horror. And I just want to clarify that all three. I'm gonna take this headphone piece out. I just want to clarify that all three of these films are all like British, and all these folk horror films relate around pagan cultures and like sometimes religions, and just there was just a time where like British filmmakers specifically got very fascinated with these cultures and like sacrifices and stuff from like the 1600s and stuff. Like there's like some type of like figure or statue. It's like a bison of some sort. I'm not really sure, but it like resembles sacrifice or something. I'll put it like right here or something. But it's just some kind of haunting art, and I think it really inspired some of the filmmaking that went into these three films that I'm going to talk about. The definition of folk horror films is kind of self-explanatory. It's literally just in the name, folklore, folk horror. It kind of just uses a lot of different folklore type things in the genre. Like there's some films in like Scotland, there's some stuff in like England, you're all over the place, doesn't really matter where it's at. It's more just in rural areas where it's kind of an outskirts and or like small population of people. Um, and that's what really makes it even more unsettling. And most of the time, it's beautiful landscapes, like beautiful like places, locations, and mixed with this horrifying reality. And I guess it's fiction, but it's pretty cool. It's a very interesting mix.
Oh, God, help
So starting off with the first of the three to be made in 1968, The Witchfinder General. It's a very strange title. Like when I first read the title, I was like, huh? I had to like read it a couple times. I was like scratching my head. I was like, what is it saying? The Witchfinder General? Like it's kind of a tongue twister. Like I don't really it makes sense when you watch the movie because the guy is like a witch finder. He like just like rats out witches. None of them are actually witches because this film is more of a period piece than a horror film. Like there's no like entity. There's no like monster or demon or like worshipping of something. Like there's nothing like that in this film, at least in this one. So it's just different from the rest of these films. I also want to make note of how the film is also known as Conqueror Worm. That's like the alternative title, which also doesn't really make any sense either. So just pick whichever one, I guess. It doesn't really matter. But I just wanted to just make note of that. I thought that was just kind of funny. But anyways, yeah, I'm looking at my script. You got a problem with that? Yeah, I'm looking up at my script right now. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna continue looking at it. The film takes place in like the 1600s, and there's a lot of things going around, like the civil war between like different sides of Europe. I don't know. Like some parts of my brain just turns off, and I don't really pay attention because at the end of the day, did I really care about that? Not that much. I'm not really paying attention to that part. So my fault, I guess. So it's because of that though, it's much more a period piece, like I said, because it's not really. It has horror elements, but it's not necessarily like the other films like Blood on Satan's Claw that I'm going to talk about later in this video. That just have a lot more horror elements in this. This is just like almost unintentionally horror. Like I mean, it is like it's trying to be a horror movie, but like the things that are happening actually happened to real life in the 1600s when witches were accused, and that happened in real life. So it's kind of just showing what happened back then. That's the entire film. So ideally, the film shows a lot of like sacrifices. That's kind of the main like that's the kind of the pinnacle thing for a lot of these folk horror films. They're very much that type of thing. So yeah, but this film does not do it the greatest. There are some scenes that are quite spooky, like I showed, um, and it's because of the Witchfinder General, which is definitely the best performance in the film. It's 1968, so you got some bad actors in this movie. I can't lie. That's probably one of the weaknesses of this film. So the Witchfinder is never. I'm gonna take this earphone piece out again. I keep on just leaving this in my ear without realizing. So yeah, the Witchfinder is pretty evil. Even though he's known as doing justice, he's actually just killing innocent people. Um, he's the monster, really. He is the monster of the film. And I think it really influenced future folk horror films because he kind of gathers a following of people. Like he becomes almost like a cult leader, which influences future folk horror films that are very cult centered. So it's similar in that aspect. And one thing I picked up on that's probably my favorite thing about the movie in general is the Witchfinder's appearance. The way they use cinematography to just like blocking and like lighting, especially to outline him. And also just his character design in general just really like makes him stand out. Like in one scene where I'm going to show it, put it right here probably, and it's going to show he's a perfect like outline. He's a dark silhouette, and it just kind of shows that his evil like presence he has in the film. So it's just a really nice touch that I just wanted to point out, and I think that that is the highlight of the film. This film also features a protagonist. A lot of future folk horror films don't necessarily feature protagonists. Like at times they do, but not all the time. But this one is one of the clear-cut protagonists of a film. It's like one of those heroic man figures who's gonna save the day or whatever. And that's you kind of lose that, which I'm actually grateful that you kind of lose that throughout this genre because if we had that in every single genre, it would get super boring. Um, because he's just super flat. That's one thing about this movie is all the characters are really flat. They're just one type personalities. Like you look at them, you look at their faces, you hear them like say a few words, you're like, yep, okay, so they're that guy. So you just kind of know from the start of like who this character is going to be. They're very flat. Also, compared to the other movies on this list, the music doesn't really bring the folk feel much at all. It just has the classic heroic music and the classic scary music. There's not a lot of like chanting and like like classical like let's say bagpipes or something. Like there's no like cool instruments that bring in the folk feel. So that's kind of influenced in later films, and I think that's basically just probably because of the time this film was made and that there hasn't really been a lot of folk stuff yet. So the movies later on take from this movie and make better movies because of just time. So I will tell you that these films they just get progressively better as the years go by, and there's more inspiration, I guess, because of this film. So is this film recommendable? Do I think you should watch it? Depends. It depends on who you are. I think if you're interested in the genre and like where it like really started, because this is like the first like noticeable film that's folk horror. There's maybe some, maybe like one or a few that could be possibly linked to folk horror, but this is like the first like straight up folk horror. Like if you look up first folk horror movie, it's probably going to be this that tells you. So if you're interested in how it started, like I was, then I definitely give it a watch because it definitely sheds some light on how you could see how possible other films were influenced and inspired, and a lot of things were definitely came from this movie. So if you're interested in that, definitely give it a watch.
Kathy.
The next on this list is The Blood on Satan's Claw, 1971, I believe. So it's a few years after the first one. Like I said, these three movies are all British. Why did I say it like this? British filmmaker movies, and it's not like it's just interesting. That's all I gotta say. Because it was only in Britain, like UK type area, where these films kind of gained traction, and then it spread into other countries, but it originated from British filmmakers, really. So, yeah. So this film, um, it's better than the first. It's better than The Witch General. I would definitely give you that. And the film is, I mean, from the title already, you can tell that it's just more of a horror movie. And honestly, like I recorded a thing before and after. I was like, this is before I watched this movie. I thought it was gonna be way more like scary than it was, or just messed up. And then don't get me wrong, there are some really messed up things, but I thought it was gonna like really, really mess me up. But it didn't. I mean, it really didn't. There's some sequences that I really do think are really great, but it kind of loses it. It loses the momentum it's building up. And that's why the next one on this list is even better. And I think the next one on this list is a masterpiece. So please, just wait. All right. The next one after this is genuinely a masterpiece. But I gotta talk about the Blood on Satan's Claw though. Like I gotta tell you more. All right, because I think it is worth a watch. I do, honestly. In some way, in some aspects, it depends on who you are and if you like full horror. It kind of like this, like I said about the other one. It depends on if you're interested in like how it started, how it originated, but it's still like, or if you just generally like the genre of folk horror, I'd recommend it to you because the one before this doesn't necessarily have all of the folk horror aspects, but this one I definitely say has pretty much all of the aspects of folk horror you're gonna get in a folk horror film. I just see other ones do it better, but it basically has all of the pieces, just maybe not put together as well. One thing I really wanted to make note of though is the soundtrack. All right, especially in the first horror sequence in the film, I love the sound. All right, it's like original, like it's actually like an original score. It's pretty rare you find that, but in folk horror, you're bound to find it. Like you are bound to find that just like original eerie feel to all of them because they have just like a different feel, and it's really nice. It's refreshing. And unlike the Witchfinder General, this one is the first to actually incorporate the folk horror music feel. Like the first one, like the Witchfinder General doesn't really have that yet. It still has kind of like a basic like classical score, in my opinion. The film also features a protagonist, but and like other folk horror films, it isn't really like a heroic character. It has a lot more gray area to him because he's known as the judge and he's gonna go and vanquish the summoning or whatever because they're trying to summon like a demon, whatever. So low battery there. Yeah. So he's trying to vanquish it, right? But he leaves. He leaves town so then it can spread around town and kill more people. And then he'll come back later, but he's just gonna let it kill people first. So that's some gray area there, and that is gonna influence future films in the future as well. Why did I say future twice? I will say the characters are really dumb in this film. Like, for example, there's one scene where there's like this floorboard that's like opening up, and then the guy's like, you know what? Like, I see this like floorboard like creaking open, but I'm just gonna stick my arm all the way. My fault. I had to downgrade. I had to downgrade my video quality because, bro, my phone is just running low on storage. It's not it, bro. So I'm sorry. We just got downgraded. I'm sorry. Anyways, continuing my story, right? So like the floorboard is like creaking up, right? And but he's like, you know what? I'm gonna stick my arm into it, right? But this isn't like stick my hand in it like a little bit. Like he sticks his whole arm, like shoulder length, like it's all the way in that floorboard, bro. And then he gets yanked in. It's like obviously you're gonna get yanked in, bro. Like he's dumb. Like this isn't even like this is worse than Georgie and It. Like at least Georgie from It was like a little kid. Like at least it's a little bit reasonable because he's a child. But this is like a full grown man, bro. There's no way you're doing that. But this is like one of the first films to maintain that rural like area and keep that spooky area because honestly in Witchfinder General it doesn't really have that yet because they're kind of going around to different towns. So it's not just like one area, but this film maintains that one like secluded area instead of going all over the place like in Witchfinder General. One notifying place is definitely like the dilapidated church that they use a lot in this film, which is really cool. Um, and they kind of do like sacrifices there and stuff. Yes, I looked at my script, just weird. And honestly, it kind of like loses its flair halfway through the film, at least in my opinion. It kind of reaches the middle and it kind of loses it. But there is one scene close to the end of the film that I kind of showed you already. That's like the best scene in the film, and that's kind of closer to the end of the movie. It was great. They did a great job there. Everything leading up to that, the climax of that scene, which was not very cool, and I do not like that scene.
Okay, future Larry Bean here, but just wanted to say I think I scrambled my words here when I was talking about this part. I don't like the final climax of this scene. Not everything leading up to the scene is good, but it's because there's a grape scene, which was not very cool. I do not like that. Anyways, just to clarify that.
It was messed up. Everything leading up to it was great. Also, I just want to point out that like the possession and like the kids and stuff, like it's not fleshed out really at all, and it doesn't feel grounded or believable. It just, I mean, a little bit. It does a little bit. Don't get me wrong, but like, and the main girl is kind of their leader. Is great. Is probably the best actor in the film. She does a pretty good job. Um, but overall, the acting's still not that great, and a lot of the characters are flat, just like in Witchfinder General. So, okay, so the final film I'm going to talk about, maybe I'll talk a little bit about some other stuff later at the end, but is The Wicker Man. 2006.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes! My eyes! Ah!
Yeah, let's go. Okay, no, not really. The real masterpiece is The Wicker Man, 1973. I mean,
Summer is a coming, now we sing for gold. Grows the seed and grows the bean, and springs the moon of you.
1973 is, was a good time apparently because I mean this film was great. All right, just 2 years after the Blood and Satan's Claw, 2 years after they decided to make a masterpiece. All right, because yeah, it is one of the greatest films I've ever seen, and one of the greatest like horror films too. The first thing I can take note of is the belief system. So it's all located on Summer Island, and there's a police officer, right, and he's investigating the missing girl on the island. Um, and he rides like a plane onto the water, and then he like glides up on the water, and it kind of just rests there. And it was a really cool shot, I can't lie. And then he gets on a boat, right, and he, or maybe they bring a boat to him. I don't know. I don't. I'm a little blurry here. It's been a little bit since I watched it, but it's still very good and very vivid in my mind, mostly. And he's investigating all the town's people, and at first the town doesn't seem super suspicious. Like they're like at the beginning, they're like, "We're not gonna let you on the island. Like, go, leave." But then they eventually let him onto the island, and the film does a very good job at slowly revealing things and making you feel unsettled, and you realize like, okay, yeah, these people are really weird, and they're doing a lot of weird things, and they believe in some messed up stuff, and it dives into their belief system way more than any other folk horror film, and that's what makes it much more interesting and grounded and believable. Yeah, he's asking around about the missing girl, but nobody is like believing him. They're like, oh yeah, she doesn't exist, or like they compare her to a hare a lot in the film, like a rabbit. Um, and like even children are doing that too. And he goes around town and stuff, and he's investigating these people. It's kind of just like a small town on the island, like I said. And the name Lord Summer Isle gets brought up, right? And he's like the Lord, and his name garners so much tension and just uh horror and like curiosity, I guess. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of mixed emotions. You hear his name being brought up a lot in the film until you finally meet him, right? So it just does a good job of just building up his name and giving his name a lot of meaning and power to it. So once you finally meet him, it's like a very important moment in the film. Another thing is this film easily has the best soundtrack out of any of the folk horror films. It heavily relies on like the locals' songs that they sing, that, and all the songs have meaning too. Like some of them have some very weird meanings, bro, but they have meanings, right? And it gives even more background to their culture and beliefs, which just adds to the film and its groundedness. That's another thing I wanted to bring up is all these folk horror films relate animals to the plot in some way, at least especially Blood on Satan's Claw and especially The Wicker Man, because The Wicker Man, they talk about the girl and they relate her to the hare a lot, and there's a certain scene with a hare in a grave, um, and it's an animal instead of a body there. So it's just like, I think it's very symbolic in folk horror genre in general, where animals are very related to the overall thing. Like the same with The Witch, which has come out more recent, and I definitely think The Wicker Man has heavily influenced folk horror genre the most, more than any other film in the genre, for sure. Especially because of its cinematography. All right, that's probably one of the biggest inspirations for the genre, is the fact that it's able to hold this warmth to it, but also be horrifying, right? So like the events transpiring and things going on is very much not warm and happy, right? It's not like yay, it's messed up. So your brain is doing all this weird like things, like I see happy colors, but what's happening is not happy. So like your mind is like getting messed up with. And that's the same thing with Midsummer, where the colors are super bright, but just these awful things are happening, right? And it's just it's a beauty, like it's awesome. Like what other films do that? I took my earbud out again because I've been like listening to my clips that I keep recording, and then I keep on forgetting to take my headphone out. So so if you ever see it and I don't notice it, that's why. That's why. And also one thing is just, why is it called the Wicker Man? Because it relates to a whole sacrificial thing. The Wicker statue, which is like a real thing actually, that was actually like a real thing in the past. I don't know, here we go. Here's a picture. It's definitely the most memorable like part of this movie, and it really just makes it a staple in the horror genre as a whole. Not even just folk horror, but just horror in general. Like you see the statue and you think of the Wicker Man, right? Um, and it's horrifying, right? Like what happens in this thing is crazy because they basically put people in it and then they just light on fire. But like they put animals in it sometimes too, so it can be a lot of different things. And let's just say you'll definitely see that in the movie. So yeah, another interesting thing is that you notice in this film is the clashes of religion and just freedom of religion in general. and the fact that this guy, he's very prideful, the police officer, and he's Christian, which is completely fine. Love God, everything. Um, but the fact is that he is very prideful over it, and he's always like lushing about it. And once he figures out about these weird beliefs, he's like, "How could you do this or whatever?" And don't get me wrong, like what they're doing is messed up. Don't get me wrong, but like, are you trying to get killed? Like, are you trying to die? Because I mean, if you're gonna bash on their religion and they're at their own homeland, bro, don't expect to just go home, bro. Don't expect to get on your plane and fly off. Like that's not gonna happen. Like you're gonna be their next victim. So why don't you just hush up? So yeah, it does not definitely a bad decision there. So it's a really interesting thing where it's kind of gray area um, with that character, with the main character. Um, it's not really a heroic figure in this film, really. There isn't really one. Very similar to the other film. And it's very similar to future ones as well in the genre, is which is a nice thing to see time and time. You know, it's good to have protagonists that are, have good sets of complete morals and such. But when you see them fall apart and you see their uneven sides and you see that they're imperfect, that's what makes them even more human. And we really see that with his character. Um, and I think that's what really makes this movie special. Is it handles a lot of tough topics in general, and I think it's a very much needed watch, especially for horror fans. It is great, and it will help you understand the folk horror genre even more, um, and maybe even make you branch out and watch more folk horror films. So definitely give this one a watch, and yeah, that's a wrap out of these three. As you can tell, I like Wicker Man a lot. That's the best out of these three films, and then it's probably Blood on Santa's Claw, and then Finer General. I think it's just depending on your own taste, but I mean, The Wicker Man is like objectively better than both of those films, and just yeah. But yeah, honestly, I'd recommend any of these films. At the end of the day, it's October, so if you're looking for a horror movie to watch, well, why not watch all three? It's definitely some more original ideas, and if you want some more stuff, just look up folk horror films. You'll find more. And if you haven't watched Midsummer or The Witch, definitely give those a watch too. They're a lot more recent, and it'll definitely let you envision like how far we've come from The Wicker Man and the previous films. Where while I still think The Wicker Man is the best folk horror film, I think it's better than Witch and Midsummer, but in my opinion, okay, don't get mad at me. All right, it's just mine. All of them are great. All right, but yeah, I still think The Wicker Man is the best, and probably will stand the test of time. I mean, there's some stuff you can learn from it that I think we should learn from it for years. I mean, not the things that they're doing, but just necessarily just like being a nice guy, bro. Because I mean, he honestly, if he wasn't so rude, he probably would have had a better outcome. So yeah, just be good people, all right, and have good days, have a good life, everybody. Um, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed talking about movies. I love movies. Uh, yeah. If you want to see me react to more horror movies or whatever genre, let me know. I'll watch pretty much any movie genre. If there's any more obscure genres that I should check out, uh, yeah, that's gonna be a wrap. But thank you. I love you guys.